Hello there, I'm Sconchulus, and this is TEPPEN Deck Tech, where I present to you decks that are fun, strong, or interesting. Today, Mare, we are turning the meta into a frenzy with TEPPEN's newest mechanic and set. The new keyword Frenzy can permanently buff units in both the hand and the deck, which our cards can then summon directly to the field. It's one of the most unique keywords and archetypes ever in TEPPEN, so we are actually going to start things off with a quick breakdown of how Frenzy works. When a Frenzy unit is played from hand, all units in your hand, EX and deck, that are 1 MP higher become frenzied, which will boost their attack equal to half the MP of the unit played. So Namehage will add 1 attack to our felyne, and felyne will add 2 attack to our Blanca. Also very importantly, you do not need to go in order starting at 3. Our deck gets the most value out of our 5 drops, so playing a 4 MP unit is much more important than playing a 3 MP. And your ideal mulligan isn't just going for a single 3 MP or 4 MP starter, but any 2 units that you can play in sequence. Even a slow start with a 5 drop into your 6 drop is better than a non-start with just a 3 or a 4 drop and a bunch of actions, for example. So now that we're on the same page, the green Frenzy starts with a single 3 MP unit, Namehage. He's 4-1, making him a premier blocker and turn 1 aggro play, with a great death effect to boot. This guy is so good that I'm not even considering the other 3 MP Frenzy, Huge Slug. More like Huge Ugh. Which, yes, means that there will be games where your 4s do not get frenzied, but in my experience that is not a big problem, as long as you can get to Peko and Shara for the big spoops. Speaking of spooky, next is Felyne, who, RIP, I guess. I don't know what happened, but I hope Nero is taking it alright. Regardless, this card is fantastic, despite how it looks. The ghost will always fade away eventually, even frenzied, but it is also always generating value through MP boost and direct damage. If you open this and a 5 drop but no Namehage, you should always keep that hand, because you have your entire game plan online. Our other 4 MP is Horned Bully, which we are maxed out on for 2 reasons. 1, being it's the best thing to float into off our 5s. Double shield is clutch in every matchup for a ton of pressure. And second, because we really need our 5s online more than anything. Playing this unfrenzied turn 1 is still gonna be worth it to get the frenzy of frenzying. Am I crazy, or is frenzy a noun, an adjective, and a verb? Anyway, next is the beating heart beneath the floorboards of our deck, Peko and Blanca. Starting with Peko, a 5 MP 4/8 is already just over curve for vanilla, so the fact it summons a 4 MP or lower from deck makes Peko a mountain to climb at any stage of the game. And to one-shot any would-be mountaineers, we have Blanca. His second effect is identical to Peko, amazing, like we said, but his first effect is the reason this deck can go toe-to-toe with anything. Nothing else in green kills a gutsman like this Blanca can. And our final battle floater, I didn't even see it. It is Shara. It's bigger and better Peko that can summon Peko and has spillover. Not a lot to say that I haven't already, just that getting this Frenzy online after your Frenzy 5 is your win condition. And even more so than Peko, Shara is your best card to put on pressure. And atop the Frenzy chain we have Tateo Besu. We'll talk combos after this, but this card is wild. Just by the numbers, baseline with no Frenzy, this thing has a 3 MP body, summons a 3 MP minimum, and heals 6 HP, which is a 2 MP effect. So, an 8 MP effect means Tate is always more than worth its MP cost, and with Frenzy, this card can steal the whole game when played. Still, it's really slow and needs 2 board slots open, which are definitely downsides that have made me consider cutting it, but just by the numbers, having a potential 14 MP effect in deck is worth keeping around. Now let's talk some combos. The big flashy god finisher of the deck is Snow Slasher Goss Harag. For 6 MP, he destroys one friendly frenzy unit and buffs your entire board relative to its attack. It's kinda weird, but in the context of what we're already doing, this will end the game. If you play Goss into a floater like Share Shvalda, the unit summoned will be buffed as well. In the matches where I can hit Goss Harag for 3 units, I have yet to lose a game. But that is a really expensive combo, just like most of our plays, which is why we have Yawn. I forgot to mention it up top, but Yawn is a big part of why we can play such a greedy curve and play cards like Tate the Bus at all. Most of our cards are born to die, like Felyne, Blanca, and Namahage, so sneaking in some Yawns that your opponent can't do anything about is easy. We can even trigger Yawn ourselves into big combos with Limb Reaper. This is just Goss Harag's effect for a single unit and a single MP, and honestly, I thought this would be clunky, but in practice, it is pure versatility. This dodges seals, steals, and banishes, frees up a board slot if you need to, and is the cheapest way to break our next very broken card, Battle Chip Hero Sword. Even with no aspirations to combo, this card sets up nasty KOs on the enemy hero and can win action phase like crazy. But with Goss Harag, this card enables the biggest green pop-offs ever. And our final combo piece, which everything else revolves around, we have Nightmare's guest, Sherry, the protagonist of the Daymare Diary, who in true protagonist fashion has completely unique, never-before-seen abilities that genuinely break reality. Her first effect seems innocuous enough, encouraging skillful plays to keep her alive, recoup some free value, until you realize it counts both players. Against any frenzy deck, if Sherry shows up, she will become nigh unkillable and keep you floating at 10 MP the entire match. It is completely centralizing, but the effect that breaks the card is that you get to play her 5 times with MP refunded every death. This gives you just about infinite chump blockers going into time, but also makes hitting a Goss or Limb Reaper combo with her basically inevitable. Either one of these effects would make her worth playing, but both of them make Sherry the real nightmare. And our very last unit is Steel Hero Massimo. He is always amazing, but this deck gets him online faster than anything else and gives him the highest ceiling possible. If the Harag doesn't end the game, the Steel Hero will. And we've got some boring, generic, good actions too. Wall jump and disarm are the good stuff. End of Fate is just beautiful. And last we have Enchanting Nightpool, for when you just need to get away from all the dang daymares. And for when your floaters are about to float, the pool will let them float even better. Here's the deck QR for you, and with all that said, let's get into it. Game 1, we are up against Nina, aka Jill Valentine, one of the heroes I'm most excited to see back with a new meta deck. So let's see exactly what these two fan-favorite archetypes are capable of in the new meta. We'll start things off with our Ghost Feline, and our opponent activates We Are All Friends, one of the most cool cards they've added in a long time, and they will start things off with Akabi, which does not have Frenzy, but when they follow that up, Dahlia will be able to defeat us using the effect from You're the Only Friend. We will play down Pekko in front of their Dahlia, and they will attempt to detonate Pekko, which gives us the chance to respond with Enchanting Nightpool to buff up whatever we summon. Our opponent then responds to that with the shield they explored on Dahlia, and we will get from deck a Horned Bully, which is not yet frenzied. Our opponent will play down a Jack Baker, which is also not yet frenzied, but is still a very scary threat if we can't deal with it. We will activate Yawn on our Pekko, which we know is going to die, and at the last second before Pekko does die, our opponent activates Den City, which gives us the chance to defeat their Jack Baker using Child's Room. If this had been Hero Sword, it would have done exactly the same thing for 1 MP less. That's just the card you should be playing in the slot. And following that up, our opponent will play down Nut Trooper to clear our board, and we will play down our finally frenzied Horned Bully, which our opponent is able to one-shot with their Guile. Thankfully, we have Steel Hero Massimo to keep ourselves in the game, but our opponent's antibody activation will make their Nut Trooper a lot more dangerous and able to take a big chunk out of our Massimo. Then, when we think we are able to defeat their Guile, they are able to break our board using Bone Demon Logia Cruise, but thankfully we have enough MP for Tatayo Beisu, who will completely turn things in our favor. Even with 2 massive combo units on field, their board is nothing compared to the combos we can pull off with Limb Reaper, and at this point we have taken game 1. Game 2, we are up against Ada Wong Breakaway, which could honestly be absolutely anything. I'll tell you right now though, they are playing Demons, which is an old meta deck that's gotten some exciting new support. So hopefully our deck is as good as an old dog with new tricks. We'll start things off with Namehage, and our opponent uses 2 of their tutors to add 2 demons to their EX pocket. They will play down Anakaris to defeat our Namehage, and they will follow that up with Virgil into Lucifer. Against any regular deck, this would seize control of the game completely, and against us, we can't even use the Blanca that we would have liked to use to defeat Lucifer, but we do have an easy answer with the Horned Bully. Our opponent will then follow that up with their Revenant, making their board scary and already putting on lethal pressure for us. But we have more than the stats necessary to contest it, and our opponent will return their Revenant to the EX pocket after they play down Fallen to try and save the game-winning play for later. They will play down a Senko to stall one of our units, and we will play down another Horned Bully to finally defeat their Fallen. Our opponent will play down a Blue Meanie, which is a huge stat stick, but with nothing to complement it. It isn't really doing anything special for him. They will play down the strange new Legendary Waka, which will go to our side of the field, and we'll let it attack before we realize that we can actually sacrifice it to get a combo for ourselves off of Limb Reaper. I gotta say, the Waka card seems a little off. But following that up, our opponent will play down both of their Revenants, which we have no trouble defeating, and we will go for our Sherry. Our opponent is then able to go for their Lilith, which can potentially take control of the game, but with its self-damaging effect and Sherry getting in those tiny hits, we get as much damage off of it as possible before we go for our Goss Harag combo, and we will Yawn for style, which our opponent surrenders to. Game 3. We are up against one of my all-time favorite characters in Teppen, played by my very favorite player of that character, Strider. So, with all the hype around Akuma, let's see exactly what he is capable in the hands of a very dedicated player. We'll start things off with Namehage, and our opponent will start off with Homunculus, and we will follow that up with our Frenzied Horned Bully into Felyne. Feeling safe that we won't have both of them destroyed by one Ascend, but I have not learned this matchup, and Comillos now lets them destroy the entire field for one Ascend. Our opponent ascended over their Wesker, and we will play down our Horned Bully, which is just more fodder for their Iron Maiden to destroy. We will play down our Shara Ishvalda and go for Yawn right away, because if we had not, they would have Iron Maidened, stealing the opportunity from us. And the feline that is summoned is easily defeated by their Fetish Monster. However, we do at least have the stats to trade out using Pekko and a Blanca to defeat the Fetish. Our opponent, though, is able to play down Birdie, summoning back a Iron Maiden from the field, which we will use our Blanca right now on to stop them from having the chance to Raging Demon it. We are currently somewhat in control of the game, able to use a wall jump on our Horned Bully to keep it on the field, and our opponent will respond with Defect, one of the coolest spice techs that people have already discovered for this deck, to summon back Homunculus as well as potentially William Birkin later in the game. And we are able to set up our combo that we were looking for with Gossarog into Sherry and Pekko, getting a completely full field, but our opponent has the one thing that might be able to turn this around for them: Completed Diary. They will play down their 1 MP Homunculus and their 1 MP Wesker, defeating 2 units. But with one of them being Sherry, we will just play her down a second time, and we will take Game 3 against Strider. Here we are again, and wow, those combos. I'm sure some of you are already thinking, I only showed the only games on my champ claim where I hit those combos. But you might be surprised, the Gosharog pop-off is extremely consistent because you are pulling from your deck everything that isn't Gosharog before you play him, so it's very consistent to draw him. And I have 2 tips to make your summons from deck even more consistent. Specifically for Shara, if you have a 5 MP in hand as well as Shara Ishvalda, you should always try to play the 5 MP card first, so that you will summon a 4 or a 3 out of deck, and then Shara won't be able to summon that and can instead summon a 5. My one other tip is that you should never ever play Teteu Besu before you draw the Gosharog. Summoning it from deck is okay to get the Piercer, but you always want to be using it to end the game with the pop-off. If you do all that, this deck can beat just about anything. Except Burn Dive Attack. I think we can beat any other meta deck, but the second Dive Attack pops, we lose our best interaction with Blanca. And I'll just go out on a limb and say I think Burn might be the best deck of the new format, so having the bad matchup to the worst deck isn't a death sentence. And I've also got a budget version here for you, of course. The one thing, I think it needs felyne. You can't get by with fewer 4s than this. Mandragora is also an extremely scary card that I didn't have a chance to try in this build, but I think is definitely going to have a place in the meta somewhere. As for the next episode, let me know what color you guys want to see next. I'm interested in Purple Frenzy, but I've only heard really bad reports of how good it is. I'm also still trying to crack some dual color stuff, so let me know if you'd like to see something like that, or maybe some red. Maybe even Sekio Kuretsuha. I'm still messing around with this meta because it is a really fun one so far. Hope you guys like the deck, and thank you all for watching. Please like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you subscribed. Once again, I'm Sconchulous, and I'll see you in the next one.